Hey, welcome to Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf, and as always, as a leader of the pack, I am out scouring the countryside looking for tips, tricks, pieces of data that will help you be more effective in leading and growing your business. As entrepreneurs, we always need to look for new stuff, right? Always in that hunt for more information. You're probably perpetually curious, like I am, and many of the entrepreneurs that I know and work with. Just a real quick comment before we dive in. Got something big today about more of the employment data that dropped late last week, earlier this week on from the Feds. Anyway, before we get to that, as you've been watching this, you've probably been noticing we've had some lag problems with video and audio. We're working on that. Every time we think we've got it solved, it proves not the case. So I appreciate your patience. We are working on it. Thanks for the feedback for those of you that have been letting me know, and glad to know that for some of you, it gives you something else to laugh at me about, because I'm all about laugh with me, laugh at me, just laugh and enjoy the journey. Now, here's something that complicates the journey. Part of the jobs data that was published by the federal government for the April jobs report showed that people are quitting their jobs in record numbers. This is for the month of April. There was a big jump from less than 2% to 2.7%. Now, think about this. That's not huge. So it's not like people are leaving their jobs in droves, but at a time when finding the right people or getting anybody to come back to work is a challenge for some businesses. You may be experiencing this. I know, particularly in hospitality, I've been hearing a lot about that. One of my mentors owns a hotel chain, and he was talking about the challenge that they're having with getting people to come back, because part of it is they're earning more money at home. Why would they come back? They're like, we'll wait till September and see what happens. It's not the only issue. However, so job market's tight for that and other reasons. At the same time, people are now leaving in record numbers. 4 million people left their jobs. And I saw that statistic, so I've been watching for more, see what other people were saying about the analysis. Here's something from Yahoo Finance. We talk about it's a 20-year high for people leaving their jobs. So it's, why are people leaving jobs now of all times, when getting some other notes here for you. So just letting you know, why are people leaving at this time, right? You'd think that people would be wanting to stick with what they've got. And we'll come back to that, but it's more employees are quitting. I got some notes here that I want to make sure that I touch on for you. Part of it is there's more hours working from home. So those that are able to work from home are finding that the integration with having work at home along with family at home, because of during the great shutdown, you have multiple people working from home. You have kids doing school from home. You have perhaps extended family members that came to live with during the great shutdown, or were there visiting and got stuck because the government told everybody to shelter in place, ordered everybody to stay home. That created a huge impact. So now some people were finding they're working more hours. That was something that my wife and I went through. We did something that saw a lot of you may not have done for your team. We set up separate work areas because we knew better than to have workspace commingled with bedroom space, with eating space. So we, to the best that we could in the space we have available, we created a separate work area so that when we're at work, we're at work. We can get up from our desks and walk away to an area that's different use. That was some guidance I'd gotten from a psychologist colleague. It said, look, when you're setting up home offices and whatnot, keep functional space separate and different uses for different spaces. One of the challenges, though, not all your team members are going to have that option, right? Not all your team members are going to have that option. I've been on Zoom meetings where people are using porches, bathrooms, kitchens, garages, because they just don't have the space to have a completely separate, isolated work area. A true home office. You've likely, as an entrepreneur, you've likely got a true home office that's separate from the rest of your living area, rest of your house, because you're set up that way. You've been in business for a while. You've built a substantial business. It's something that's part of being a business owner, being a professional like a doctor, a lawyer, psychologist. And did you help your team set up that way so that they aren't at work 24/7, 365? See, that was how I learned that lesson because I was having some some serious stress because I was at work 24/7, 365. And over the years found how to separate stuff. Like one of the things that we don't do is we don't have a television, internet, or anything like that in the bedroom. Right. The bedroom is for the purposes of the bedroom. We don't have other stuff there. Now we'll take Kindles, to read before nodding off or whatnot. But it's having that sense of separate space so that mindset wise, when going into the bedroom, mindset for bedroom activities, sleep, rest, we'll leave it at that. Use your imagination, but not to just sit and watch television, not to fall asleep with the television playing. That adds a whole new level of stress. So people, there's part of the stress that people were experiencing. And for those that where you've got your employees on site, they're stressed out more because they're most likely working more hours, right? With fewer people. So it's a lot more hustle. It's a lot harder hustle to be able to serve the reduced number of customers that you could accommodate during the great shutdown. If you had the luxury of being allowed to stay open, uh, as some of us were not during the great shutdown, that created stress. Everybody was suffering from time management issues, frustration issues with just being able to get groceries. Right. I mean, my gosh, people a year ago, this is June, right? A year ago, people were literally getting in fistfights over toilet paper at big box stores, which were allowed to stay open for some reason. Another issue for another time, right? But look at what was happening then. So people were carrying that in to their work time, which feeds into why, they're going, yeah, why are we doing this? So it's just the number of hours. It's a period. Another thing is it's a period of reassessment. Right. So it's the shift in the work pattern has completely got them discombobulated and is adding a whole new layer of stress. They're just running their daily lives because of what changed during the great shutdown that was ordered in response to the pandemic. Added a whole new set of stress and frustration into their lives. Now there's been this huge reassessment as well, right? Do you know someone or have someone close to you, maybe a family member or a friend that passed away? That died because of COVID? Most of your team does. You likely do. Most of your team likely does. Now, we may not be an immediate family member. Hey, I'm sorry. I have to stop for this real quick. Good morning, Dennis. How are you? Dennis Normella is joining us again from China. It's always good to have you with us, Dennis. How are you, my friend? Good to hear from you. Coming back to us saying about the time of reassessment, because, so when you have people close to you pass away, that typically drives a time of assessment for people and start looking at life and thinking, what am I doing? May think about things differently. They see people that lost their jobs because companies closed, right? We had 30%, generously. This is likely, the data is showing this is an underestimate. Let's say 30% of businesses failed in the small business arena. 30% of them are permanently closed. People lost jobs, so they were hustling to find other ways to pay the bills. They were hustling to augment reduced income, another form of reassessment. In this thing so we started out with 2 weeks of shutdown, right, to flatten the curve. We ended up with nearly a year, depending on where you live. All right, California just opened on the 15th, 2 days ago, but that was with restrictions. Like, oh, we're open, but here's the restrictions. So it's not really open. It's more open, getting there, but still not open. And we're still, the governor's decreed California is still in a state of emergency and holds emergency powers to be able to decree things that can affect business. Now, where you're living, that's where we live. That's the reality. Not a complaint. It's just that's where we are. Where you're at, you may be in a state that's been open for a long time. You're probably somewhere in between, statistically speaking, right? The thing is, that amount of time, regardless of where you live, the shutdown that affected everybody lasted longer than 21 days. We've talked about this before. You remember why 21 days is important, right? It's what it takes to really get a new habit formed, right? So people have new habits, and it was way longer than 21 days. And there's other research that shows that there's a longer time period to really get it into your DNA. The point is, it was long enough that the most people have formed new habits because the changes that were decreed during the Great Shutdown lasted for way longer than 21 days. So they have these new habits, which will affect how they're thinking about what they're doing with their careers, their lives, their employment, being part of your team. How are you responding to that? Here's another statistic that I want to share with you. And we've got some show and tell today. So here's something else from, and I really recommend you look this up because there's some great data in it. Indeed.com, big jobs site. They did a survey and they found that 67% of people were saying burnout is way bigger, way more of an issue because of the COVID pandemic and the Great Shutdown. The burnout, because of the Great Shutdown, burnout is a much bigger issue. It is significantly bigger issue amongst Gen Xers, which are probably the people that are, you're likely a Gen Xer yourself. They're probably, a big driving force on your team, right? They're in their core productive years. Boomers are still making stuff happen. They weren't affected as big. It really hit the Gen Xers hard in terms of their perception of burnout being a bigger issue. It was let me, check my notes here. What was the difference? So it's a 35% increase, right? Now more than half. So before COVID, after COVID, 35% increase in Gen Xers that say burnout is a bigger issue now. And it's over half of the Gen Xers in the workforce. That's huge impact. It's huge impact on you and your colleagues, big impact on your team. Here's something that really, really surprised me. Gen Z was the second biggest hit. So that's the newest members of your team, the newest members of the workforce, right? The Gen Zers are just now hitting 25, 26 years of age. So you've probably got some working for you, or for kids have them and you're watching this affect them. So there's 23% increase in the percentage of Gen Zers that see burnout as a bigger issue post-COVID. So how are you working with that? All right. And I'm looking on the screen here. Hang on. Okay. I have my reading glasses on and I still can't read that number to you off the screen. So over half, and with Gen Zers, it's over half. Now they're newer to the workforce. A lot of them were juggling, are still finishing college or saddled with college debt. They're newer to the workforce. This is likely their first rodeo in terms of having a big disruption economically from a work standpoint, from a business standpoint. Some of them are entrepreneurs like you. You may be a Gen Z entrepreneur. More power to you. Any way we can support you in meeting your mission, achieving what you want in life, let me know. Here's the thing. This may be a bigger impact to them because they're not used to it. Now, I'm a border Gen X boomer. I've been through multiple economic cycles, multiple disruptions, multiple health stuff. Like we've not on the scale of COVID, but as we get older, we ride the waves in life, right? So maybe not, maybe better prepared than some. Like I mentioned before, my wife and I work from home anyway. When my wife, her firm shifted to virtual work and her clients have been happy with it. We knew how we were better prepared because of life experience with how to set things up so that it had less of an impact. So we could manage that impact because it was really an issue for my wife. And then for me, because we were spending less time together in the evenings and going out and doing stuff. My wife particularly felt the stress from working way more hours. And we both had to really start scheduling things better. Then I started doing it. And, not that we're competitive or anything, but we responded to that. So part of that could be with Gen Z was having that basis and then having the mentoring and coaching, people that have been through stuff like this before that knew how to set things up, how to respond, that may not have had the mentoring and coaching support or the systems for that kind of support yet in the arc of their career, in the arc of their business building, like some of the folks that have been a little bit farther down the trail. So food for thought. I don't want to go too far, and I just wanted to point that out because it's surprising and it raises some questions. Coming back to my notes here, hang on. So with that many focused on the burnout issue, With so many people quitting, here's a question. How are you helping your team members achieve what they want out of life, get where they want to go in life through being part of your team? Right? What is the mission that they've joined with your company, and how are you aligning that or helping them to understand how that aligns with what they want out of life? Are you even asking that question? I hope so, because if you're not, you should be. And if you get an answer where they're, because sometimes it's like, there's just no way. It's like this, right? They're going this way. Your mission with your company is going the other way, and it's not going to work. So then you need to find some way to help them get opportunities, to move on so they can get what they want. It's just going to be counterproductive and more stressful for them and for you. And it's unfair also to the rest of the team because they get hit with the impact of lower productivity, with people not being happy because they're struggling. It just increases the frustration factor for everybody. You should be asking that question. What's your, if you're not, would put that on the to-do list to talk with your leadership team about that, and start with your leadership team. Make sure that that may be why if your leadership team hasn't gelled the way you thought it should, based on how everybody looks on paper, maybe there's an alignment problem there. Maybe the alignment problem is yours. Do you have the stones? Do you have the backbone to be able to look at and take feedback and criticism related to you possibly being the alignment problem within your company in terms of mission and with alignment with your team? Yeah, hard questions. Now, before you send me hate mail on that, I get questions like that from my mentors and coaches. So I understand how hard that is. And believe me, that kind of stuff gives me a huge amount of pucker factor. And I have to take a deep breath. I'm like, because I don't like that. And it's like, what do you mean? And I have learned to, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, take a deep breath, let the emotion pass, and start asking clarifying questions and hearing what they're saying and looking at what I can, what action I can take around that. So it starts with you. You're the leader of your company. Bad news is all lands on your desk. Good news is you've got people there that are part of the team. You're in this together. So there's that, so how are you, with so many people quitting, they have options. They perceive different options now. So with such a big increase in people quitting, and here's something to give you some balance. The hiring rate has been constant. So 4.2% of the workforce has been new hires. So think about that. 4.2% hired every month. That's been pretty consistent across several months. The quitting rate as of April has gotten up to 4.0%. It's getting pretty close. So almost as many people are hiring into new jobs as are saying, I'm done, and quitting their job. How will that affect your business? That could be hugely disruptive. It could be a good thing, right? So it's just here, 3 questions I want to leave with. How are you making sure you're keeping your best people? Right? They're the ones that have the most options. They perceive the most options, and realistically, they have the most options. The best people on your team, the strongest leaders, the best technical masters of it, the best salespeople, the best at whatever they do. They've got more options than to work with you, and they've got more options than most people in the job market, in the business opportunity market, to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to leave here and move on to something better. They've got people actively recruiting them. How are you making sure that they're staying with your team? And it comes back to that alignment. For one thing, are they really, do you make sure everybody's clear on your team what your company mission is and how you're contributing to the benefit and welfare of your customers and clients, and how the community benefits to them? Now, I don't mean that from a social, from a social component that currently that's being treated by many people as something separate, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how just by the nature of being an entrepreneur, you found a need and filled it. So you're adding value to the community, right? Getting paid in business, getting paid for something means you're adding value. So Are you making sure your team's clear with that? And are you clear on how that fits with where your team, your individuals on your team want to go in life, what they want to get out of life? Sometimes it makes sense to hire somebody for a season in their life and in your business because it's mutually beneficial to moving your business forward to where you want it to go and for that person to move forward towards where they want to go, knowing that at some point that's going to diverge, and that's fine, and you help them with that. Right? I had a boss. If you've been listening to Wolf's Watch, you've probably heard the story. I was sitting a VP. I was sitting across the desk from, and he looked at me and said, "They're not supposed to enjoy it. That's why it's called work." Well, he was a sour, sad individual, and they couldn't keep good people. Right? They didn't care about the mission, and that helped with the negative spiral that they were in that eventually caused the company to fail. Right? At the time I had that conversation with him, he'd gone from 1,100 people to 300 people. So how are you making sure that, and when I left the company, he got really angry with me. Sorry, got into the story, almost forgot my point. When I left the company, he got really angry with me because he'd expected me to stay. Well, I could see where the company was going. And I was the seventh person in my position in 5 years. It was a leadership role within the company. And he was like, well, all of a sudden, as I'm leaving, after he didn't treat anybody really all that well. But as I was leaving, he's like, we were grooming you for a position. And I just told him point blank, I said, look, Jim, there's not going to be a position in a few years. He'd already acknowledged that the changes that I was leading and others, it's not, I'm not all that in a bag of chips. The places I've been, I've had a role and I've had an impact, and I've been proud to have the impact that I had. And also made sure that to the best of my ability in hindsight, I got better perspective. But at the time, I was aware that, look, I'm not the czar, not the person, not a savior coming in on a horse or anything. That it wasn't just me, it was other people too who were doing great work within the company. And he just wouldn't let any of the stuff. He acknowledged, he goes, look, this whole thing that you and others are planning and they need to do is what we need to do. That's what the company needs to survive. We just can't do any of it for 3 years. But he blocked everything until his retirement. Now, the reason I tell that story is so that was his perspective, right? You may have worked for somebody like that at some point in your career before you became, started your own business. They weren't able to keep the talent that they wanted to keep. And they had a lot of people that they just couldn't get rid of. They had no option to go anywhere else. So they didn't really care. Right. So what happens? The top talent. This is where I watched this process go on before I left, where they're losing top talent that was critical to the business. I mean, the brain drain was just heartbreaking, to watch the business flounder begin, and these people that wanted to see it succeed. And most of them I was early enough in my career where I knew I wasn't going to stay there till retirement anyway. For me, it was one of those places I was going to be for a season. But I also knew I had to contribute big time if I wanted that season to count in terms of moving me forward into a better, into the next season on my career path. Some of those folks had been there for decades and they so wanted to see the company succeed. And it was heartbreaking because it just couldn't happen. It was being blocked. And then the same person that was blocking it got angry with them when they left. And it's like, well, what do you expect? Don't let that happen in your business. It's just heartbreaking. And what is just, man, let's have a hallelujah breakdown moment is when business leaders like you have that kind of alignment with people, and it's clear you're solid with each other. If they move on, you're good with it because you, in your heart, know they're contributing what they can while they can to your business, and your business is doing the same for them. And when a time comes that they move on, then it becomes a good thing because there's genuine hope for the future, genuine, sincere in your heart desire that they succeed, and you appreciate what they did for the time they were with the company. That is just, oh man, I love seeing it, and that's part of why I like doing Wolf's Watch, is to help with bringing information to you that helps create those moments, helps create that success for you and for your team. And that's why I like working with entrepreneurs. Because by definition, entrepreneurs, as an entrepreneur, you're providing value and you are continually expanding opportunities for your family, right? It all starts at home, your team, and the communities that you serve. Now, here's 2 more questions and we'll get going. Here's the second one. How will you respond to those that leave? And we just talked about that. Think about that. Are you going to leave everybody with a bad taste in their mouth? Or are you going to, you're really going to be hopeful for them and let them know that you appreciate what they've done for you and you wish them the best, and that you will be, if you can continue to help them in the future, and that you can continue to consider them a resource, right? Because people like that, they tend to have communities of people that will be full of talent that you need one way or another in the future. And then here's the final question. How are you using the opportunity, this opportunity? How are you, let me start that over. How are you seizing this recruiting opportunity? All right. There's a lot of dissatisfaction out there. Burnout at an all-time high. People leaving, quitting their jobs to do something else at an all-time high. That is a massive recruiting opportunity for you to continue building your team as you scale up your business over the next 18 months. We're going to be talking a lot more about the next 18 months. It's a crucial period. Phenomenal opportunity. What does that also mean? There's phenomenal opportunity. Yep, you're right. Big downside risk. But it's about seizing the opportunities and managing the risks, right? You know that. You're an entrepreneur. You're running your business. But this is a massive recruiting opportunity. Who do you need on your team? Right? Who do you need to go next level, to scale up? Bob Metcalf, in his interview with Tim Ferriss. Bob Metcalf, you may not be familiar with Bob. In case you're not, here's who Bob Metcalf is. He is the reason you're connected to the internet. He invented Ethernet, local area network. Without that, none of us would be connected to the internet. And he was the founder of 3Com, which got Ethernet going in the early days. So here was something that he shared with Tim Ferriss. Was the points in knowing when you had the right person in the right position for the scale of your business. They had a salesperson that was good up to a certain level. He actually stepped and was forced out as CEO and then asked to run sales of the company he founded. And he was able to swallow that, didn't break his tennis racket, as Tim Ferriss said. You got to look up Tim Ferriss and check out this interview. You should listen to it again and again. There's so much wisdom from both of these men in this interview. And he plays tennis. And something that Tim Ferriss said in the interview, this is part of what you want to hear in the interview. He goes, "Oh, you didn't break your racket." And he goes, "No, I didn't." When his board of directors that he had recruited told him he's out as CEO, and his friend that he had brought into the company was going to be put in that place, he did 2 things. He agreed to take over the sales. And the thing was, he goes, there was wisdom in that, because in the early days of the company, the founder can get doors open. When it's the founder calling and go, "Hey, I want to talk to you about this technology or this, our company," door opens better than if it's a some salesperson working for the founder. And secondly, he swallowed his pride and said, "You know what? I wanted to understand why he was a good pick and I wasn't. And I acknowledged that I wasn't, because this board of directors that I had created and whose wisdom I appreciated and respected were saying I wasn't. And as much as that hurt, he stepped back and shifted roles." He went on to find out that he was only good in that role up to a certain level, and they had to recruit someone in to come and, as your business grows, you've done that, right? You get your first 100,000 in sales and okay, now we got a business. You get up to $1 million, things need to change. When you're going past 5 million to 25 million, you're getting into systems and processes and optimizations so that you can scale beyond that, right? Well, he talks some of his experience from those levels. And 3Com became a huge company. And this is from the man that connected 7 billion people to the internet. Big impact, right? So that's the value that he created and added. There's a lot of, again, that interview series with, love Tim Ferriss, listen to a lot of his interviews. And no, I don't have any connection to Tim Ferriss. I just learn a lot from his interviews. So here's a bonus for you. I learn how to ask better questions. I learn how to have a better relaxed conversation, and I learn a gobsmack bunch of insights that are applicable to my life from people who are super achievers. So there's that. A little off track. Hope you got something from that. Here's, as you're watching this, More comments. Always get our friend Dennis from China who joins us when he can. He's been on ground zero near Wuhan through the whole pandemic. One of his colleagues got severely ill, survived it, which we're all grateful for. Dennis has been in good health. Dennis, if you're still with us, I know our time change is massively different between here and China. Thanks again for watching and checking in. It's always good to hear from you. I've known Dennis for a long time, and it's always good to hear that he's still doing well, and he's having an impact with what he's doing, teaching English, teaching public speaking to students and entrepreneurs in China. Great communicator on his own. So, let us know. Like Dennis did, check in with us. Check in with me. Be part of the conversation. I keep saying this is 21st century television, right? I was watching Glenn Morshower and Scott McCain and Ken Walls when they were doing their Sunday night TV series, which was a live stream through the pandemic before they went on. Things got busy as things started to open up and they had to put that aside. But I watched here's three professionals, a highly accomplished and successful professional actor, a Hall of Fame public speaker. So Glenn Morshower, you may know him from the TV show 24, is watching what he was doing. Scott McCain's a Hall of Fame speaker and a lifelong radio personality. And Ken Walls, who is the king of live stream, and a very successful entrepreneur as well. The three of them, how they interacted, and it's like, that's where I went, yeah, this is 21st century TV. It's live and interactive. So be part of the conversation. Hit the like button. Comment live. Even if you're watching if you're watching this on replay, comment. Still work to keep track of comments so that we can continue to interact even after this has been posted. Went way longer than I wanted to today. And again, I want to leave you with these three critical questions. 3 critical questions related to the issue of nearly as many people are quitting their jobs as a percentage. 4% of people quit their jobs. 4% of the workforce quit. 4.2% of the workforce got hired in April. So this is trending in the wrong direction, right? Hiring has been flat. People quitting has jumped. It was, I believe it was less than 2%, or I have to look that up. I didn't pull that statistic before this show, but it was a significant jump percentage wise. And it's a lot of people. So with that happening, with people being more susceptible to leaving their jobs, right? They're in a different mindset. They have different perceptions on their options. They're assessing things differently. 2/3 of people in the workforce, based on the survey that Indeed.com did, are saying that, you know what? Burnout is a much bigger issue. So there's a lot of factors that are playing into people saying, you know what? I'm moving on. They're either moving on to a better job, or they're making a hard turn into something that they always wanted to do, or realized that they had really wanted to do, and the pandemic created the dynamic for them to be able to admit that to themselves and decide to take the risk. So here's the 3 things to consider around that. How are you keeping your best people on your team? How are you responding to those that do leave? And some of them will leave, right? You've likely got a team, 25 to 100 people. You're going to have people leave that you really, really want to stay. It just happens. Doesn't mean you're a bad leader. As John Maxwell says, a good leader will have fewer people leave, but people are still going to leave. How are you dealing with them? Because that has a big impact on your company. We could probably do a quick Wolfe's Watch on that all by itself, the impact that has on how that gets handled in your organization. And then third thing is, how are you seizing the opportunity to recruit top talent? Right? A lot of people are moving around. That means if you focus on that, you've got an opportunity to recruit people that can be game changers for your business as you're scaling up. There's phenomenal opportunity in the next 18 months. A lot of downside with that. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be the good, the bad, and the surprising. Are you positioned, or how are you getting yourself positioned in order to capitalize on that? And having the right people on your team, Jim Collins, if you haven't read Good to Great, get Good to Great in the social sector. It's a shorter version, more condensed, has some great, I think he distills it down even further to to applicable stuff. Still, Good to Great is a must read, because as he shows from research, science-based research, follow the science, as they say. Having the right people on the bus, The right people in the right seats on the bus, so to speak. You say have the right people and the right roles on your team is more important than where the bus is going. So check out Jim Collins' Good to Great if you haven't read it. If you have, this would be a good time to study that again. Oh, okay, that was a lot, but there's big announcements, a lot of data coming out that shows that if you're on your toes, you got a lot of opportunity, as you know. Goes with entrepreneurship, but it's not easy, which also goes with entrepreneur life, right? So thanks for watching Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf, and I will see you on the trail.